Thank you, Thomas, and thank you all for inviting me. Looking at the whole, and looking at you and the program as a whole, I think that you should be proud that the college is doing that and you are part of it, because it means eventually that it looks at you as individuals that needs to develop, and I think that it's a very powerful point of view and you are part of it, and it's great. So I brought a mask by mistake, so I'll put it here. I hope it will protect us all. And basically, I would like to tell you a story in the next 15 minutes, maybe a story that will wrap most or part at least of the presentations that were conducted during this day. So the story talks about a world that is evolving eventually, and I think you heard these different aspects of this evolvement, and this evolvement relates to the job market, of course, but it's also a story about the interaction between humans and machines. Now, I'm coming from Kinneret Academic College, and Moravian and Kinneret has lots of things in common. We share the view of looking at students as individuals that needs to develop. We have an innovation center, same as here, and we look at the future as a future that must be sustainable. And this whole presentation is talking about the trends and changes in the job market, changes that we must take into account when we want to look at ecosystems eventually. Well, if we look at the job market as I knew it 20 years ago is collapsing. No more stability, no more long-lasting careers. It's over. Instead, we have a new job market and a new generation of employees. So let's take a spotlight on these employees for a few minutes, and we can see a few challenging trends. One of them is that 1 out of 7 employees is self-employed. 1 out of 9 employees is working under contemporary or temporary conditions, precarious job market. The population is aging in OECD. If in the 80s we could see 20% of the population above 65, now we can see a third, and in 2050 we'll have more than half of the population above 65. It's challenging because there is a challenge of age gap, or the age gap challenge, as I call it. We need more young employees to fulfill the vacancies in the job market, but it's not the only challenge, of course. The second challenge is a demand challenge. There's no demand. Today, compared to 2019, we have 14 million vacancies, more people inactive in the job market, and they are not seeking for new jobs. This is something that, if you look at the global trend, is annoying. And there is a motivation challenge as well, because these population or these people are leaving their job voluntarily. So this is another challenge. Now, if we take a spotlight on the job market, the trends are also challenging. You heard fragments of these challenges during today, but we can settle the challenge as a whole if we use 2 words, AI. Now, AI is a game changer, and if we look at the job market by industries, we can see that the incorporation of AI in the industry made some challenges. If we look at some industries, like the telecom industry, we can see that lots of jobs were redundant due to AI incorporations, and but small amount of jobs were created due to the incorporation of AI. If we look at the high-tech industry, then most of the jobs require AI, and there is some redundancy of other jobs. So, in general, we have a gap between the demands of AI skills, and this gap is increasing by year, and it will increase in the year to come. So this is one aspect of the job market. The other aspect is that all jobs like marketing and human resources and sales are evolving to new jobs. And you can see that the workforce is changing or switching these old jobs to new ones. Like cloud computing is something new, wasn't here before, and engineers are going there, and from other industries as well. So, what should be done? It's a great question, but mainly the answer relies on retraining and reskilling of employees. Like if we look at the industry, in 2025, half of the population will need reskilling. Now, the Americans look at the trend differently than Europe. Americans see the trend as something that they will deal with by hiring new people with these skills. In Europe, the trend or the strategy is to reskill the employees, and it's a better strategy, of course. We should train the generation that we have in hand. So, if we want to sum what I said till now, it's a new game of skills, right? And we talked about AI skills a lot. But there is another set of skills that we overlooked. We call them social and emotional competencies or skills. Social and emotional competencies is something that was not part of the working world till a few years ago. Still, most of the jobs don't talk in terms of flexibility, empathy. These are skills that are required in the new job. We all talk about collaboration and entrepreneurship and innovation. We can't do it without being flexible. We can't do it without the ability to interact with other people. It's not an option. And if academia will not incorporate these skills as part of the skills, you can't do anything even if you're the greatest engineer in the world or the greatest doctor in the world. You must look at these skills as not as soft skills as we saw them a few years ago, but critical skills. These are critical. To be empathetic, it's critical. To be resilient is critical. We must look at it as critical skills. Now, the third set of skills that are required are green skills. We have a climate crisis, right? We must understand it, we must deal with it, and without understanding these issues and the other skills that were discussed a few minutes ago, we can't have good and innovative ecosystems. So what should we do from three perspectives: employees, employers, and entrepreneurs? So let's look at the employee perspective. You know, employee practically should take responsibility. They should be prepared for the future and should enhance their competencies. They must be proactive in that. And conceptually, they should leave the new set of mindset that they possess. Like, there isn't anything like long-lasting careers. There isn't anything like permanent jobs. It's not there. It won't be there. From employers' perspective, we should retrain employees. Like, flexibility and AI skills is something that employers should take into account, and ecosystems, of course, must look at it as the future or the infrastructure for a good future. But maybe if we are talking about ecosystem, we're talking about this angle of entrepreneurial perspective. And I think that entrepreneurs should go to the start of the presentation and look at the interaction between humans and machines. We should shape the future eventually and create a sustainable future by sustainable development. And this was discussed. We didn't coordinate actually our presentations, but we talked in the same language, of course. So you here started your way in the working world. You should shape the future. We count on you to shape the future, otherwise who will shape it? But in order to do that, you should look at all these trends and make sure that even if you have a new startup and you have the money and the resources to do that, you should make sure that it's sustainable. Now, I will give you one example of an issue, of a social issue that maybe some of you are not aware of and others might be aware of. And you look at this topic from the perspective that I just mentioned. So, bullying at work is my theme of research, and bullying at work is basically a repeated antisocial violent behavior, like gestures and words that are not right and harmful. Usually it's verbal or non-verbal. It's humiliating people, it's hurting people, and it's happening every day in most jobs, right? And if we look at bullying at work from a measurement point of view, till now, worldwide, 20 years at least, we measure the frequencies of these occurrences. If I would like to know if you are bullied at work, I would ask you to what extent you've been yelled at, to what extent you've been ignored at, and this information will make me understand if you're bullied or not. Is this relevant in the future that we're talking about? Not at all, because we actually measure the past. And the past is relevant to understand the future, but it's not relevant at all if you want to intervene in real time. It's meaningless. What can I do if you were bullied half a year ago? How can I help you? So we must have the ability to intervene in real time and maybe to forecast bullying in real time. So I'm involved in two projects, and one of them is a project, the first one is a project that I'm trying to promote here with Thomas and the college. And I think that it's a very innovative project because it doesn't exist anywhere in the world. And it basically is sustainable because it solves or pretends to solve a big social problem. And the first one, again, is a bullying mitigation in healthcare using AI. You heard, throughout the day, healthcare or smart healthcare, you heard the word AI, and now we are trying to integrate that into a system that will help us to solve this problem. So I will give you just an imaginary view of this project because it's still on paper, but we will promote it, I'm sure. And think of yourself, hopefully not, yes, but for the sake of, this example, think of yourself as standing in the ER, emergency room, and you're stressed because you or your relatives needs help, and the lines are long, and these startups that you have heard before helps, but not enough, and you're stressed. But due to the fact that you have a bracelet and we can measure your biofeedback, and the cameras can see that your facial and your face experience, and we can understand that you're stressed and you're about to burst, and maybe we can send you a text message saying that, hey, we understand you're under stress, we'll approach you in a minute, don't worry. And this is relaxing, right? And in another imaginary world, think of technology as ambient. It's all over us, it's all around us, right? So think of a day in which you are a doctor in this ER, and you can understand that in 20 minutes there will be pressure in the ER because you saw that 20 waste instruments are directed to the ER. And if you can see that, you can increase the team on time. You can spread a relaxing smell through the air conditioning system. You can do lots of things that will make the world more sustainable, clean from bullying. So this is one project and I'm sure that we'll be able to promote it together. The other project was born 2 weeks ago, actually, when we joined some kind of a consortium that is trying to understand how games, consoles like Nintendo, etc., impact the world. You know, some of you play these consoles, and during the game you experience what we call cyberbullying. I mean, it's not part of the game, but it is, actually. And we want to understand how we can mitigate cyberbullying without damaging the game itself. And in this project, for instance, imagine that we can identify the type of player you are. If you are an achiever, you want more points. If you are an explorer, you would like to have more possibility to view extra worlds as part of the game, right? And if we can give you some extra credit, depending on the type of player you are, if you helped someone, supported someone that experienced cyberbullying, this will change the world. This will do something to others. And I think that eventually it will bring us to the new era that we all talked about today of sustainability. So the job market, you know, to conclude, the job market was never a bright place. You know, it's difficult, it's demanding, and it's not easy. And in the new era, you should work harder, and maybe you should balance, as we heard at the beginning of the day, you should work hard, we should balance between the demands and, you know, and your life. But in any case, in the old world and in the new world, in the future, you must have a place in which you can fulfill your destiny, a place you can grow in, a place that you will be developed in. And this is only possible if we'll clean the working place from bullying, and I think this is one aspect of a sustainable society, environment, and of course, ecosystems. So I would like to thank you all for listening, for joining, and I'm happy to share my view with you. Thank you.